Hello, everyone, and welcome out to The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky, a podcast where I sit down with some of my friends in the local Columbus, Ohio theater, film, and improv scene and talk a bunch of geeky stuff. Some of it good, some of it bad, but all of it definitely geeky. If you enjoy our programs, be sure to subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts and to leave a review, or subscribe and leave a review wherever you can get podcasts. Support for this podcast comes from our lovely backers on Kickstarter, like Wooz, for example. Wooz is someone who's pretty awesome. I actually do a few things with Wooz. His name is Stephen Woosley, but that's how he wanted to go by Wooz. So Wooz, that's how we're putting it up here on the show, even though I did just say your name. No, Wooz is pretty great. He's one of the nicest guys you will ever meet in the local theater community here in Columbus, Ohio. He's very supportive of almost every show. It's weird to not see him at a show sometimes because he's usually at every show. I think I've seen him not at a show like once or twice. He's very supportive of the community and is just an all-around great guy and super funny. So check out, I think he does the show Mafia Minute with Amanda Iman from Amanda's Picture Show A Go-Go. I'm assuming the link for that is somewhere on amandaagogo.com. If not, check out iTunes Mafia Minute and you will definitely find it. And they go through The Godfather minute by minute. Also, check out Wooz's home base, I would say, which is MadLab. Go to madlab.net to find out what shows that we all have coming up. Thanks, Wooz. Our official sponsor of the show is Audible. With over 200,000 titles to choose from, get one audiobook and 2 Audible originals each month included with your trial, even once your trial ends and normal membership begins. How rad is that? Best part is you own your library, meaning you keep the books even if you cancel with Audible. Plus, you get easy exchanges. So, don't love a book? Swap it out for free anytime. Sign up for your free trial over at audibletrial.com/goodbadgeeky. Download the Audible app and start enjoying your new audiobook. We're also part of the It's All Been Done Presents Network, a Columbus, Ohio-based multi-platform creative network. Let us entertain you. We're also voted one of Columbus's top picks for 2017 and 2018. And we have tons of podcasts, frameworks, reviews, videos, and more. For more information, go to iebdpresents.com. In this episode, I am here with Erik Sternberger as we sit down and talk about Spider-Man Far From Home on this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Geeky. And a word of warning that there will be spoilers aplenty, not just on this, but just about anything that we may talk about, so listeners, beware. And if there's anything that you want to say about Spider-Man Far From Home, join in on our conversation by interacting with us via social media or email. Twitter and Instagram is username GoodBadGeeky, or email me at goodbadgeeky@gmail.com. We may read your comment on a future episode of the show. All right, enough said on my end. Will, roll 'em. So it's supposed to be a little bit more of a fuller episode. Just a big shout out to Jessica, who is recovering from some personal stuff. So thank you, Jessica, for...
she was bitten by a radioactive spider.
She was, that is correct. Oh. And she's recovering, which means she no longer uses glasses. And she's got an amazing six-pack of abs.
Whoa.
And
could someone please point me in the direction of a radioactive spider?
No kidding. Now, does she have the electroshock? That's the interesting thing. Or does she have the the actual physical web shooters versus the Raimis? Is that what everyone calls them now? Because aren't they technically the Camerons? And he just, because it was James Cameron wrote like the original draft where he had like physical web shooters like actually.
That's true, but I guess if you're the director, that's your final call. You can change shit.
That's true. That is true. That is true. Okay, so obviously we're here to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. And this movie has a lot to do. It has to... publicly, if you follow the MCU stuff, they tell you this is the end of Phase 3, which you'd figure Endgame would be the end of Phase 3. You would think, but Marvel does this a lot. Yeah. They do like a big movie like Avengers, and then... Or maybe Avengers 2, and then they end it with Ant-Man. You're just like...
Which then will have like some kind of weird tie-in where it makes sense afterwards.
Yes, but again, when you're watching it, it's just... And this film, I would also say, has a very interesting coda.
Yeah, a couple of them. But it reminds me of, like, a lot of times, and you get this, like, especially, like, in comics, and I feel like this is, like, just a straight-up comic book story in general.
Yes, it is.
This felt very much like if someone said to me, oh, this is, Amazing Spider-Man 527, I'm like, yeah, this feels like Amazing Spider-Man 527. Or the arc or whatever, like a trade of it.
And didn't they also take a lot from Mysterio's actual first appearance?
Yeah.
With the elementals?
I think so.
The trailers make you feel that it's not the case.
No, which is great.
Which is great, which we'll talk about in a second.
But also in the fact that it feels like especially a lot of times in comics, before a lot of stuff got packaged up for where they basically were telling stories for the trade, but they would lay in something that 8 issues later this character is going to show up, and they were just a character in the background in the shadows, and then suddenly everyone's like, oh shit, Sabretooth's first appearance was Iron Fist 15, and no one cared for Iron Fist 15, but suddenly that happened a lot of times where you realize, oh, this character suddenly became important later.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is one of those things where there's a handful of moments where I'm like, this is going to pay off later. Now,
have you seen the movie more than once?
Yes, I've seen it twice.
I've seen it twice, too. And it's really fascinating.
It is.
Okay, so for those who don't know, we'll get to our quick opinions of it first. But before that, Spider-Man has come back to New York after the battle with Thanos. And
come back to the living.
We'll come back to the living from the blip, which is very different from the snap.
Yes, the snap is not the blip.
The snap is 5 years ago. The blip is when they blip back into existence. That's the easiest way I can think of to remember it. I guess the other confusion for some novice fans, I would say, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. Welcome to the train. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, there's no comic book guy gatekeeper here.
No, there really isn't. But there's multiple snaps in Endgame that kind of finish things. And I think that's where they might be like, oh, what's the blip? And this movie covers that. It also and it focuses on Peter, but it talks about Peter in a post-Iron Man, Iron Man-less, and actually kind of, for the most part, a possible post-Avengers-less world.
Well, that's it's one of those things where it's probably my only concern after seeing the movie twice.
Yeah.
Because seeing it a second time reframes a lot of it, and it took away a lot of like little mini gripes or mini what's as you're watching it. But it kind of leads with the only thing, and I'm hoping and assuming, because Marvel will do this sometimes, where then another movie will fill in the reasoning.
Yeah.
Why doesn't anyone give a shit about Cap being dead when Cap was so important essentially in the first movie? Because everyone in Hannibal Buress kept showing all the videos of Cap doing,
Oh yeah.
So obviously Captain America was a big point of these kids' lives and everyone else. The fact that he was the one that they were bringing out to kids, don't do drugs and whatever. Mm-hmm. But Cap obviously had a big presence in the world.
Why aren't they talking about that?
Why are there no murals of Cap other than the fact that, at least in America, Iron Man obviously I think would be more global as a symbol, because
and I think also, and maybe they're speaking more to most fans, they love Chris Evans and they love Captain America, but Iron Man started it all, and I think they would venture to say that Iron Man was a big draw for any Avenger. Anytime he was in a movie, he was a draw. So
and they know that obviously, I would imagine the world knows he's the one who solved it with his snap.
That is true.
But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things of where's the outpouring for Cap?
No, I'm kind of with you because, there's also Vision. I'm granted not a lot of people knew who Vision was, but Vision's gone. Thor is also abandoned the planet officially.
Yeah.
Not abandoned, but you know what I mean? He's leaving it, and he's leaving his people behind. They're not talking about any of the Avengers that survived that are...
Well, and that's where it's, I don't know, I'm hoping maybe kind of how America deals with that is probably maybe going to be covered in the Disney Plus series with Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Hope.
So I'm hoping that kind of fills that gap of how people view Steve Rogers, because it could be one of those things that maybe in the MCU in general, Cap is dead, Cap is gone, but it's not quite the same. I'm sure they don't
Yeah.
No, I'm sure they do not want to admit they have time travel capability.
Yeah.
Because of what that... I'm sure there's some kind of cover-up about it being covered. Actually, if anyone wants, I want to recommend this to everyone. Read the new Blake Crouch book, Recursion, which is all about time travel.
Okay.
And how it can become like weaponized, and it's so fucking good.
Is it a fiction book, or
Yes.
is it okay? Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like one of those like a serious look at quantum mechanics, quantum physics, and then
There's a lot of science in his stuff. His last book, Dark Matter, was one I recommended to everybody I could. It was awesome. He wrote the Wayward Pines trilogy.
Okay,
It's kind of the one that he's more known for, since that got.
Is that what the show's based after?
Yeah.
Okay. Didn't the Duffer Brothers help produce that show? Not to
Yes.
go on a weird
Yep,
okay.
yep.
And that's where, around that time is when they also officially tried pitching Stranger
Yep.
Things.
So it all ties together.
It all ties together.
So
yes.
yeah, so I'm wondering if the Disney Plus series will kind of solve
I
that.
hope
So that's why, like, that was my one kind of gripe with it. But I also figured, I'm like, look, Feige smart, Marvel smart.
Yeah,
This
they
is
are.
probably just territory they're going to cover elsewhere, and
Yeah.
that Tony mattered more to it could like a red car phenomenon, where if you have a red car, all you see are red cars.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
So you feel like there's more red cars on the.
If I have a Honda, which I do, and sometimes I do feel like I see a lot more Hondas
Right.
than I do, which I just know that's not necessary. Now, granted, if I'm in Marysville, which is the home of a
True.
Marysville plant, that's a little bit of a different story. But like, if I'm in downtown Columbus, I'm like, Hondas as far as the eye can see.
Right, yeah.
And I'm just like, no, there's some other cars you're just not seeing.
So like if we're seeing this from Peter's perspective, and he's having essentially a red car phenomenon with Tony, where he's seeing Tony everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're seeing Tony everywhere. Then that totally fits on his journey.
Well, and I think it's nice too because I think John Watts was smart enough, and thus Kevin Feige was smart enough to know that that would be a huge impact.
Yeah.
His loss, and that because we're attached to that character so much. So, like, we are with Peter on that 100%.
Oh, yeah.
So, because we'll be constantly thinking about that too. It's like, well, wait a minute. He's kind of like a major part of the new MCU version of Spider-Man. How does that play into things? And yeah,
I also I love. Oh my god, that opening montage of the high school kids putting together the tribute video was so fucking pitch perfect.
oh my god. So I just remember.
All the way down to the Getty Images logo.
The Getty Images was a cherry on top of the sundae.
I lost it laughing at that, and probably just really confused the people around me who.
Yeah, my wife, God love her, she did not necessarily get that.
If it's a deep cut joke.
It is, but it's so good.
Oh, yeah.
But
It's a pitch perfect deep cut joke.
I just remember that after, what did they show before they did the In Memoriam? Was it just the MCU
yeah.
logo? I thought there was something else they showed, or maybe I just know that when it got to the actual, after it showed all the logos, it just cut to black, and it stayed there for like maybe, it felt like 30 seconds. It was probably actually 3.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you hear, and
Well, no, that started over the logo.
Oh, it did start over the logo.
Yeah, that started as the Marvel logo came
Okay,
in.
I just know that really
Instead
was
of
like,
the fanfare.
where is this going? Because why is this song playing? Am I in the wrong movie?
Yeah.
And then you realize, no, the Columbia logo comes up, and you're like, okay. And then In Memoriam, after like 3 seconds of darkness, and you're just like,
I believe was that. Oh, God, I wasn't. Was that Comic Sans?
okay. So I thought it was Comic Sans, but I feel like it looks like a marking pen.
Yeah.
I forget what the name of that
I don't
font
remember
is.
at the time.
But it does. But again, that is also a joke in itself too, because a bunch of high school kids. Also, I thought it was really funny that I took it that the kid on the left, and not Betty, he never got taken in the snap. But he mentions at the end, he's like,
Yeah.
no, we got booked back. But he was kind of talking like an adult. Or maybe more than usual. I just thought it was really funny.
I also thought there was kind of a little subtext there about the fact that like Betty might have just dumped him. There was some kind, and that's kind of what I got of like her whole kind of like.
Oh, that adds an extra layer of humor to that.
Right. It felt like there was like a little bit. Just some people move on. It's like she kind of looked at him when she said that.
Oh, shit.
So I kind of took that because it made me want to go back and rewatch the first one again, and see like if there was like some kind of like tension they were together.
Oh my god!
And that like now they came back and it's like they broke up.
And I will say too, that was probably one of the most clever ways you could start the next MCU movie.
Oh yeah,
was with something like that, because the kids are going to as a band nerd. Just now, I do have a concern because when you were blipped back into existence, you were where you were at when you came back. So, throwing out there, if you're in a helicopter and you got blipped out, does that mean you just fall to your death?
I mean, I would assume so.
If Nick Fury and Maria Hill are in the middle of the street...
Yeah.
Because we didn't see Maria Hill at the end, and that's the first thing I was like, wait a second. Where is she at in all this? Because he's at Tahiti. Okay, that was a nice, weird Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. joke.
Very funny.
But where's Maria Hill?
Yeah.
And then my first thought was, wait a second, if everyone came back exactly where oh no, did she get hit by a car?
Well, I believe she was on the sidewalk when it happened.
Did she? Oh, because she was so much better.
She was on the passenger side.
Fury, right, because Fury... Yeah, because she went around to Fury, who went around to her, and then, never mind. I'm feeling, crisis averted in my head.
But I also love that they from a storytelling perspective, they did that so well. As far as, like, look, here's the feedback, here's where everything was, and doing it in a funny way.
Right. So that was something my wife also really liked. I mean, I liked it too, but
because it could have been handled very darkly and very heavy. Very heavy.
Yeah.
And then also cutting right to May's speech about what happened when she came back as just such a great way to give of benefit which is a sort of all the people that came back that are now homeless.
Yes, which is such a
which is an interesting like something that was thought out really, really well.
Yeah,
but also a great way for her character to say, "Hey, here's what's happened to us, the people you care about." So
I was talking to... I was in my head, and I maybe said something once or twice to someone offline, but I said through Facebook or whatever, I was like, I don't feel a lot of movies properly set up things anymore.
Yeah.
And part of that is, now granted, the Marvel movies are a bit of a different beast.
Is that because we saw Men in Black?
So, yes and no. So, randomly, I was listening to the episode, and I paused it, and I talked to my wife, and I was just like, man, I just really want to watch the first one again. Because it's like that whole bit that we talk about, which is in that article, like Sugar Water.
Yeah.
It's really good. And Vincent D'Onofrio nails it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nails it. And now, in retrospect, knowing that he had no real direction from Barry Seinfeld.
Yeah, I want to watch that again.
So I pulled up a clip on YouTube because she didn't remember it.
Yeah.
And I was like, more sugar, or whatever. And then I was like, oh, and wait, now you got to watch Will Smith's reaction to it. So I hunted down that clip, and I watched it, and I just remember I was like, I feel like movies don't set things up like that anymore. Like, even for little shit like that, it's a joke. But like, and then I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark, and there's a real interesting way, like how everything is kind of structured, where everything pays off at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not necessarily Chekhov's guns, but they are.
Well,
and
it's like,
it's nice.
I recently rewatched Pulp Fiction. I'm doing a Quentin Tarantino full rewatch up to
Once Upon a Time.
Which
you are a better man
which
than
I'll
me.
be discussing with you.
Yay!
When that one comes up. But it was like, because some of them I hadn't seen in like 15 years. Like, I have not seen Reservoir Dogs in 15 years, and watching that again, I was like, as someone who now is a filmmaker, in the span of time since I've last saw it and watching it with that kind of eye, I love that film even more. Problematic dialogue spots aside, like they do that like in Pulp Fiction with the whole thing with when Mia Wells takes the heroin. Like, there's like 4 different steps along the way where they clearly line up the fact that this is casually laid in this path that's going to happen.
Right.
Like, this does that so well.
Yeah, it does. It's nice too. Now, granted, it still kind of feels not like an older film, which is good and bad. But it still does exactly what those older films did. I feel like it feels a little bit more straightforward, but again, this is also a sequel. So sequels play by a little bit different set of rules. Sure. And it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe sequel, meaning that, so technically even Spider-Man Homecoming was technically a sequel to Civil War for Spider-Man.
Sure.
So it wasn't, again, different set of beats and rules applied to it. But anyway, this film still does that, though, but it does it... It's already doing it it's achieving them in a different way, which is fitting for how they tell the stories anyway, which is nice.
Well, and it's nice too that like a second, to me, like when I watched it the first time, it was like a B+.
Okay.
It was like, I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I didn't feel like it was like as deep maybe as the first one.
Yeah.
And it felt a little bit more like Spider-Man and Friends-ish kind of thing. Of like
the first one did?
This one. Just because the class was in it for so much. Because they were like, of the first half of the film.
Yeah.
But then on second rewatch, like it went up to an A- or so for me. Because like seeing all the things that they laid in from a different perspective and seeing how characters were acting based on knowing their motivations or their secrets, later.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, that's why Nick Fury isn't as good. Doesn't seem to be doing as good of a job.
Right, which is really... I mean, okay, so let's just get this out in the open now. We can talk about it later, or we can talk about it now. But at the end credit scenes, the big thing that's supposed to help supposedly set us up for Phase 4, which, I don't know, I thought the other post-credit scene set shit up for Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was going in their standard thing where one sets up this film, one sets up a universe.
Yeah.
Where they do it.
Which was Nick Fury and Maria Hill are in the car, and they get a phone call. And they're talking about someone. They don't want someone to know how bad things got here down here.
And you notice they actually had a comment earlier about how... about there being, was it Kree splinter cells or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
As they're walking around.
Oh, my God, yeah. The thing is you just expect Nick Fury to talk about, because he at this point has to know about shit.
Right, but he's even saying it to Maria Hill as if like she knows more than him. He goes, well, how am I supposed to know they know about the Kree? Like, it's not like splinter cells, whatever it is. Like,
yeah.
They Kree something or other. I guess he's talking to Maria.
Right.
And then he later, Captain Marvel, do not invoke her name.
Which, that was a weird line, and then when you see it at the end, you're like, well, that makes more sense, because to them, it's more of a, like, you don't talk about her. She is like, well, or it's either two things. Either something bad happened, which I don't think, because if not, Nick Fury would not be still hanging out with them, I don't think.
Right.
Or it's like she's like their savior. And she kind of was, to an extent. So, and I understand 100% why they would be like, don't you invoke her name. And of course, though, it's Samuel L. Jackson doing it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, get the fuck off my plane, motherfucker. So great.
And I saw something else pointed out. And we did say that they're Skrulls, right? Did we?
No,
I don't think we ever
not.
got to that point.
They reveal while they're talking that they are Skrulls.
Yep.
And that means that Nick Fury and Maria Hill, you've been watching the whole movie, is not really them. It's actually the Maria. I think the Maria Hill girl.
Oh, it's Talos' wife.
Oh, that was his wife. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. It was specifically.
But he came back. So I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I was like, I feel like she was in the other movie, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, it was his wife.
And so husband and wife were. Oh my God! But it was so funny, and a great Shield reference, which is when you cut to find out who they're talking to. You're on a desert beach in Tahiti, which is the same image that Coulson saw when he woke up or would have flashbacks. And I'm going, well, wait, does Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. matter again? I'm kind of confused here. Which
I also saw pointed out, and I wish I was the one that caught it, but someone else did. But every time Fury is talking to Spider-Man and about defending Earth, he keeps saying "your world." He never says like good. Our world or Earth or something, but he always says your world. Which is another little slip up. But like there's like constant.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's little things like that are worked in. And I'm just like, oh, like and like for example, watching it on second viewing, and you can see occasionally at times the drones.
Yes. So, okay.
And like, it makes so much more sense when like certain things happen. You realize, oh, that's a wave of drones doing this.
There was a moment the first time I saw the movie. It was right when, speaking of Nick Fury and Maria Hill, they rolled up, and it's in France where they're fighting on the Molten Man.
Okay.
Or the elemental version of Molten Man.
That wasn't France. That was...
was it? I thought it was France.
No, it was Prague.
Oh, it was Prague. I'm sorry, yes.
Because they revert.
Yes,
because they went from... They were rerouted from Paris to
Right.
Prague.
And they're at a festival.
Yes.
With the Ferris wheel and all that stuff. And, Betty and Ned are stupidly on the thing. And which I'm sorry. Like, if Ned knows what was going on, I'd be like, I don't think this is a good idea. Now, granted, he didn't know that shit was going to go down, but I would just been like, I don't care how happy my girl needs to be.
Ned is a 16-year-old boy having his first girlfriend.
Yeah, but he also knows shit can get real with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man is doing stuff.
I know me at 16 years old. I'm taking that chance.
I know. Again, Jesus. Yeah, so here's the thing. Let me get off my ivory tower here of being like close to 40 and just be like, yeah, I would have totally done that if I was in high school.
As you know,
but you're right. I probably would have done the same thing. I would have just been like, let's go do kissy face. Like, fuck danger.
Well, yeah, as a 16-year-old kid that had the first like real full-on like, kissy face experience at 16, I'm risking that.
And here's the great thing is there is no Spider-Man really, or is there? No.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's a Night Monkey.
Yeah, that's right. It was the Night Monkey. But my favorite,
which I think the Night Monkey's first appearance was Amazing Spider-Man 236. Correct me if I'm wrong, Casey.
So this is what I was talking about in my before we got like distracted about teenage boys, obviously at 16 years old wanting to make out with their girlfriend.
Glad you finished that thought.
You're welcome, because I got nervous.
Yeah.
And I was like,
real.
Yeah. Anyway, focus. So when Maria and Nick Fury, a.k.a. the Skrulls, come up, I remember the first time I watched that, and the big blast of lava, or Mysterio's blast, ricocheted and hit right through their car.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I was like, now wait a minute. The power that thing has, it would have, they would have survived, but it would have cut the front half of the thing off. But if you look, there are bullet holes on the windshield. And I was like, well, that's a continuity error. And then I thought nothing of it. And then the second time I was like, wait a second. That was coming up and I was like, wait a second. I don't think that was a continuity error. I think that is dead on.
Yep.
And because it's an illusion. And then I started, so there was little things like that. Anytime they would fire, it wouldn't be major blasts. It would be bullet holes here and there, or it's stuff like that, and it's all the drones, and just really clever.
Well, and like the first time when I was watching it, and after they have that whole thing, Mysterio's like, "Let's go get a drink."
Yeah.
And so they go into the bar, and I'm sitting there thinking,
his wound's gone.
But yeah,
that bothered me a lot, and I was
which makes sense.
Which it does make sense now.
But I'm sitting there the whole time going, why are none of these motherfuckers reacting that the Man of Mystery and Night Monkey that just saved the world are having a drink in their bar? Everyone is way too chill.
See, that did not... I think the first time I saw it, it didn't cross my mind. And I don't... Again, I keep wanting to say they're Frenchmen, but they're not. But, like, sometimes I feel like, and this is probably true, Europeans don't give a fuck about us. Yeah. Nor really should they, unless Trump is involved.
Yeah.
But legit, that's the only thing I just kind of made peace with that. But now you say that is also a big fucking trigger. Because, like, why would you fucking take your mask off if you're so scared of Night Monkey? Like, I mean, and also props for MJ for just being the smartest person ever. Oh, yeah. Which is, that's not true. It's just apparently everyone in Spider-Man comics, God love them, are just super stupid. It's like Clark Kent. That's the one thing that's just like, wait, you ever think of Superman and Clark Kent look alike, but one has glasses and one doesn't? I'm like, you're all idiots. It took what?
Well, he also changes his posture.
Okay, like, that's the big. It's just like it's a that's a club that they have where they meet and discuss how to fool people. It's like, I just changed my posture and I throw some glasses on, boom, and nobody knows who I am. Spider-Man is just like, I just fail at everything in my personal life, but I say.
I mean, I would take a shot and say that explains why they keep putting their trust back into Lex Luthor, but we're no better.
Accurate. But same thing with Norman Osborn at this point in the Marvel universe.
Yep. Although we haven't got to him yet, but let's talk about him later. But
they did take a step closer to that, because any step where they involve J. Jonah Jameson is amazing. Now, granted, we just skipped all the way ahead, but it's just to throw that out there in that same vein. That is an inch closer to Norman Osborn.
Yep.
And they got
I mean, if there's ever been the most pitch-perfect casting ever in a comic book movie,
yeah,
it's J.K. Simmons.
Now, I have to ask you, did it bug you he didn't have the flat top, but he had, like, the little mustache?
Nah, not really. I mean...
It bugged me for a second, but I'm just like, I'm so happy it's him, and it's J. Jonah Jameson together.
Also, like, I won't keep saying, like, oh, what a great re-envisioning of J. Jonah Jameson, and I'm like, motherfuckers, play the Spider-Man game.
Do you have the downloadable content yet?
Yes, I've only played through the first of the 3.
Okay. I just signed up for the PlayStation Network because I've had the game for a while.
Okay.
I'm like at 97% complete. I'm just pretty much, if I get, it's not stressful, but if I ever just get bored and I don't want to write anymore or anything like that, or I don't have to do podcast stuff, I will just play Spider-Man.
It's fun to just swing through that city
and solve crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's very comforting.
It is.
Which I haven't really played a game like that since Jaws and Spider-Man 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Of all things. Jaws is for very different reasons. That is truly because you played the shark.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And, like, you can, like, when someone's in the water and they're, like, trying to swim away, you move the camera and by moving the camera you can adjust, like, part of their limbs start to flash. And if you attack, you bite that off. Oh. And then you can, like, play with it and eat it and all kinds of other stuff. Like, so pretty much you can, like, rip a guy in half and you can, like, swim around with the other half of the torso. It's very... It's like you do. It's very dark, I will admit. And also it's on Xbox, so I don't play it. Haven't played it for years.
Sure.
But it is surprisingly a entertaining game if you ever want to play the shark.
Yes.
Yeah. Things that no one wanted to know about me. It's like, how do you relieve stress? I kill people as a shark. It's like, well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. No, but I do remember web slinging around New York.
Yeah.
In Spider-Man 2. It's just such a... And sometimes crimes would happen. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to go up to the tallest building and see how far I can jump before I can swing away. And this one, he lands. The other one, he would die and turn into a rag doll, which makes sense because, you're Spider-Man, but you're not Superman. Anyway, downloadable content, I am going to get that at some point. That's really the gist from all that. But that is a good point. He does a podcast in the Spider-Man game, and he is kind of like an Alex Jones-like character in that game, which I think is a great thing they pulled from.
I agree.
And it's a great way to introduce the character because...
It's a great refreshing. And just... I mean, who cares about newspapers at this point?
Sadly, yeah. Now, I do wonder, like, if...
Well,
Robbie Robinson...
as far as relevancy of having... like, your 16-year-old movie goer isn't going to understand... a newspaper publisher magnet. Yeah,
no, that's true. Well, I do wonder, again, this is not stuff that is important to this movie, but, like, how are they... Will the next one, like, will involve Robbie Robertson and all that stuff, and how does that fit into it? And
no, they've talked about the next one, about who he wants.
Kraven the Hunter.
Yes.
Now, so I talked to my wife this morning about this.
I have talked to my wife about none of these things.
Well, I got her into this stuff, and so she really enjoys it. And so she's like, I apparently read the article about Kraven, and I was just like thinking. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just thinking." The writer in me is thinking how you would handle that. And she's like, "Handle what?" And I started telling her about Kraven the Hunter, and I told her about the whole Buried Alive storyline, which is a great storyline. And she was just like, "That sounds ridiculous." I was like, I'm not doing it justice at all, but. The best way I think to do Kraven the Hunter was actually already done in the comic books. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I thought he was kind of corny. I was like, he kind of is, yes. But in the original comics for ASM, number 616 version, the relationship with the chameleon is
his half-brother?
Yes. Is gold. Like, that's the one thing that you can pull from that. And then just take what Bendis did, which is Bendis combined the Crocodile Hunter mixed with Dog the Bounty Hunter, and made them the Kraven of the Hunt, which made sense on why he was there. Like, it was kind of for show, but it kind of wasn't. It would make way more sense on how you could do Kraven that way than...
To me, what I would do for the new one... Also, we'll talk about this later. I got into a conversation with someone about who they would cast.
Ooh, okay.
For Kraven. My idea was... I have no idea how to pronounce this. Florian Munteanu.
Okay, tell me more.
He's the Russian in Creed 2.
I have not seen Creed 2.
He's quite good in it. And I feel like Kraven is better silent.
Yes.
A man of few words. So...
Interesting.
And he's got a look that's just an intense look. And the best idea that one of my friends kicked out is Pablo Schreiber.
Which one's Pablo Schreiber? That name sounds super...
He's been in The Wire. He's been in a lot of stuff. I'll show you a picture of him later, and you'll know him. He's currently in American Gods.
Okay.
But someone else commented that whenever he shows up, you know shit's about to go down in a movie. He usually plays kind of a scummy...
bad guy, yeah.
Yeah. But... So, like, what I would love to do is have... My main villain for the next one would not be Kraven, particularly. It'd be Jameson.
Interesting.
And that I would have Jameson put out a bounty on Spider-Man, as has been done in the comics.
Yes. Now, but that's the thing. In a realistic world, would that still play?
Well, you got to figure though. Alex Jones has put out bounties.
Has he really?
Oh yeah.
I guess I just kind of turn a blind eye for most of his bullshit, except for like the Parkland kids and all that.
Right? Yeah. I mean, he's put out like bounties. I'm making air quotes, but it's like one of those things where they'll say shit, assuming that no one's ever going to call them on it, kind of thing, and then say it's entertainment. But you can imagine if Jameson puts on a bounty essentially out on the airwaves, and then essentially Kraven picks it up.
See, I would think that too.
Now, and here's the thing: is what I would do with those. I would also have, just for funsies.
Yeah.
Is that I would also have Boomerang pick it up, the Beetle pick it up, and like Rocket Racer, or something like all these like
Stiltman.
Yeah, it's like just a handful of D-level villains to like come at him essentially as like a bit of a gauntlet that he can pretty much easily take out.
Yeah. And
even the fact of, while Kraven is essentially the real threat hunting him, he's being essentially distracted by these
other things,
other guys.
And that's how it always does for Spider-Man.
Right. And then imagine the fact of, because it's never one thing, but also that way it wouldn't be like four villains that way that gets to each one with their own motivation. No, Beetle's just a guy in a fucking Beetle suit that shows up. Who cares?
All the four Beetle fans in the world that are not the Beatles, but a Beetle. As in a bug, would just be, like, very sad.
Right, yeah. Although, I mean, the Beetle then, goes on to be in Thunderbolts, and there's he's got a whole real story in the comics. But
okay, yeah, and they are supposedly planning a Thunderbolt, supposedly.
Right, so you could seed that if you wanted to. But have, even to the fact of, like, have, say, Boomerang or... I wish you could use Hobgoblin, but, you can't. Or, like, one of those guys kind of get in the way.
Yeah.
It'd be funny to like have Kraven kill Boomerang for like ruining his clean hunt.
Yeah.
And like then you establish that Kraven is
is the more formidable threat.
The more formidable threat, and that he's like the real thing, and that you give him his bona fides of he took out one of these guys for getting in his way, and that he wants a true hunt, and then you can do essentially the hunt as kind of the overarch. But then who I would have come save the day?
Who?
Norman.
As Green Goblin?
No, Norman.
Just Norman Osborn. How would Norman Osborn save the day?
Have Oscorp come out, discredit Jameson in the video being a deep fake.
Oh, which it kind of is a deep fake.
It kind of is. I mean, I've seen much better fake videos, with deep fakes now. Yeah. So if you have Norman come out, discredit him, and essentially...
That would be epic. And if you're calling this right now, folks, you've heard it here first.
In which case, then you now have introduced Norman into the MCU. Spider-Man now owes him one.
Oh, and that will go down bad, like it does in the comics,
right?
Which,
and now you've set up a whole thing where.
So I do have a question though.
Anyway, that'd be me.
Which does tie into your. So to me, I feel like the overall game plan here is Sinister Six.
So that's the weird thing, though.
Kinda. So because the Vulture. Shocker was kind of not really a major player, but he would show up occasionally as a Sinister Six member, but he would always get knocked out because then you'd have Electro. But the problem is that John Watts also is like, to me, visually, it's more stimulating to do a character that's not been seen before. But at some point, you're going to need to get to those big characters like Dr. Octopus, and so that's the weird thing. Spider-Man 2 for me is still one of my, outside of Spider-Verse, is still one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. And part of that is because Alfred Molina is so good as Doc Ock.
He's excellent.
But it's also took an interesting take at Doc Ock, too, which is Doc Ock he does actually give a shit. While the comic books, he stopped giving a shit about what he's done because it's all about his brilliance in the comics, which is really a great character flaw for a villain to have, where he does kind of care, but at the end of the day, it's like, but how brilliant am I?
Yeah.
And then I will show you how brilliant I am. Yeah, anyway. Sandman, which they kind of had Sandman in this one, but Sandman
was an
elemental,
yeah.
But also he was an elemental when Mysterio showed up in the original comic books, and then the real Sandman showed up later.
True.
But we've also seen Sandman, we've seen Dr. Octopus, we've seen Electro. We've seen 3 of those, but we're also missing Kraven the Hunter, which, again, I think would be a good one.
Scorpion we've seen-ish. Vulture we've seen.
Yeah, Gargan we've seen, yeah. And then we've also seen the Prowler, kind of, which, granted, he's not a Sinister Six member, but it was always a fascinating thing, and it's a great cameo.
I don't know if they do that after how big of a role he had in Spider-Verse.
Now, did you think that, because one thing we've not talked about, not necessarily, is Mysterio. Did you think that they were going to tie this movie into Spider-Verse somehow, from the trailer alone? That they could go down that path?
That was kind of the thing that initially I was kind of pissed off with the trailer that they were kind of giving away the multiverse thing, and then I was thinking, I'm like, of course, that's if we're taking Mysterio at his word, which we should never do.
Yes.
So, I mean, I wasn't pissed. I didn't think they were going to take it down that road. I don't think, and they might do it, but I think they're going to let each one give some breathing room first, because once they combine the two, then that creates the whole thing. And also, the big trouble you run into here is the joint ownership of Spider-Man. And the fact that Sony has been working on their own Sinister Six movie and their own Kraven movie for a while.
Well, I hope that John Watts, and no offense to whoever has been working on it, because that's the thing. A lot of people put a lot of hard work into this stuff, and some of it you never see, you never hear about. Sometimes they get killed off. Granted, the person still gets paid for their time, but a lot of hard work goes into this, and sometimes it sucks. To me, though, Marvel has such a good track record that if Kevin Feige said, "Hey, Amy, put some pressure on Sony because we're going to do Kraven the Hunter," we don't want to do that.
I could see Sony being totally on board with that and basically saying, "Cool, don't kill him," and then they give him a spin-off movie. Which, if that means
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, Sony.
I mean, by the fact that they toned Venom down from R to PG-13, then then they can take Kraven and still work with him in the same universe as Venom.
Oh god. So I still haven't seen Venom yet, and I really need to. But I guess that's something that just bugs me about the whole Sony thing, is that Sony is playing it smart. They allowed the whole thing to happen. Like, and Spider-Verse makes sense to me. Like, I know that sounds crazy.
No one expected Spider-Verse to be as good as it was.
No, I don't think Sony did either.
No, Sony didn't. They basically were like, okay, sure, fine, whatever.
Which is interesting, because I feel it's such a good movie. And see, if they made 4 more of those, or animated Spider-Man films, I wouldn't care. But the live-action stuff is where it kind of... And no offense to Tom Hardy, because I did hear he was really good as Venom.
Yeah, he made some choices, too. As Tom Hardy does. But...
Yes, he does.
I mean... No. But I also... Yeah, Venom, to me, was a fun comic book movie.
From the 90s?
Yeah, it was kind of up until the final fight. The final fight was such a CGI slugfest that I just did not care at all. And it was there were definitely moments during the movie where they were like having Venom do things. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Of just like essentially using him as goo at times. It's like like having goo shoot out of his chest to grab something. I was like, why wouldn't he just take over his arm and have his arm grab it? Like, they were like kind of...
Yeah, well, I remember Bagley, granted, this is from my memory reading it as a kid, but like, Bagley would sometimes have Eddie do stuff, but Eddie was always doing something in his other hands if he would do that.
Yeah.
Or it's usually like when Peter is trying to sneak up behind him, because Venom can track him, but not the other way around. He would usually be sitting there, and all of a sudden the goo would show up and grab Peter, and then he would turn around and was like, Spider, 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 what do you think you're doing?
Or he'd grab him, and then suddenly, like, Venom would morph to be facing that way instead of facing the other way.
Which is such a crazy thing when you really think about it. In a comic book, you can't see how complex that would be to really do, but it's so fucking rad.
Yeah.
I just remember one of my favorite panels of Venom ever, and then we'll get back to Mysterio. Sorry, weird tangent here, but... I think it was issue 375 where Venom kind of becomes good.
Okay.
Officially good. This is after the Carnage and all that stuff where he kidnaps his parents, and granted, we don't know they're clones yet.
Right.
So, and Peter goes to his wife, which is kind of set up in the movie, the blonde-hair girl, his ex-wife, Anne.
Yes.
Anne or Annie. He goes there and he's like, look, he really does think he's doing the right thing here. I don't know how to stop him. How do I get my parents? I just want my parents back okay. And long story short, too late, she goes out to stop Eddie from doing this horrible thing, which is either killing Peter or killing his parents. Or not killing his parents, but they could get hurt.
Yeah.
But killing Peter, because Peter does do a lot of good. Eddie can't see it. And one of my favorite panels is he grabs Peter, like, mid-jump, and because Peter's kicking his ass, and he grabs him mid-jump, and the symbiote just wraps around his face, and then he just starts slamming him into the Ferris wheel. But it's like it's such a great panel that Bagley drew, and it's brutal. And then he hits the Ferris wheel, and that's when it starts to fall on Anne. And then Spider-Man is the one who gets up and saves him, saves her. And that's when Eddie's like, hey, I just remember, it's also a weird thing. I think it's one of the same thing. He turned around through the symbiote, and he's like, Spider-Man, let's make a deal. Whatever. It's a great panel. But I do kind of remember that from Bagley. So I was asking about that because Sinister Six long term, and that got us into Sony and different stuff like that. Because Sony still does, it's a joint venture between Marvel.
Well, it's only for like a certain amount of films, isn't it? Isn't there some kind of?
I feel like the deal was for 4 or 5 films, and I think we've hit our target because of Civil War. I think if Marvel gets one more, I think it might be because they did this with a lot of contracts. I thought, which is where, except for Chris Evans, Evans actually had to get contracted out, but everyone. They were doing one movie that they were going to split up into 2.
Yeah.
And that's how they got around some of the contract stuff. Because I know Tony, that's his real name, Robert Downey Jr. did actually get contracted out for Far From Home.
Yes.
Or not Far From Home, Homecoming.
Yeah. I knew what you meant,
Yeah. But the 2, Infinity War and Endgame, I think that was shot, back to back as one movie. And so I think the only one who had to do additional stuff was Chris Evans. Again, that's weird contract stuff. But, so I think they might be...
I haven't heard anything about the contract being up, so I'm assuming they at least have one more.
I hope they have one more.
If Sony's smart, the amount of money this thing made...
Oh, my God.
Which set the record for a 6-day premiere.
Yes.
It's like, keep it going, because your other Sony films are not doing great.
Right. Okay... Now, this is something else that hit me after watching it the second time. I didn't mind, and I think you didn't... Well, you didn't like it the first go-around, necessarily. Not that you didn't like it, it just wasn't as engaging for you, but some of the stuff with the kids and how they were on the trip.
I just thought it felt kid-heavy.
Okay, so for me...
It felt ensemble-heavy. Whatever.
But I feel like Spider-Man, especially in those early years, it's all about that ensemble.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the question is, well, how do we get him over there and have it just be... We just can have it be Ned and MJ and him. It's too much. It's just, it's too much of a coincidence those 3 are there. But if you have the whole class there, then you get some... Because that's the problem that I think... Raimi made some choices, and granted, I like some of those choices, which is we skipped through high school, and then Flash Thompson became a memory. There was no Flash Thompson after that. But that to me is always one of the fascinating things about Peter was years later him and Flash become good friends, and I like that. I like that a little bit.
Yeah.
And something that they've been setting up is this whole, which I love too, which is Flash also had a huge boner for Spider-Man. Yeah. No, he was a fanboy.
Yeah. Here's a weird thing, and I will say this, while I did think it was like a bit ensemble heavy in the beginning, I also thought every member of that ensemble was fucking perfect.
Oh, no,
It was just kind of one of those things like, I want to get to Spider-Man.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But did something get cut? Or the fact that there's 2 references. Now, granted, one is in the text messages when they kind of show them, so it's very, very brief and quick.
Okay.
Of Flash and his mother.
Something might have got cut, yeah.
It's like, I feel like, I don't know if like was something cut with it, but like it's very deliberate choice when they get back, and he goes to like, and it's his driver, and he goes, "Could Mother not make it?" And he like shakes his head no, and then Flash is like super bummed, and we hold on that.
It's
like I feel like I'm like, was something missing? Did something get cut?
Well, I know
Is
huge, like 6 minutes,
something
6 to 10 minutes got cut out of the beginning of the movie, which is it's in the trailer where he's like in the Iron Spider suit.
Yeah,
because actually that was supposed to be the thing, is that he was late to meet Aunt May at the homeless shelter, and it's in the trailer where he goes to the cops and he's like, "Are you the new Iron Man?" He's like, "No, I'm just," or I forget what the line is, but he's like, "Yeah, I'm just doing your job. I can't be Iron Man because I'm too busy doing your job as cops." Oh, Spider-Man! There was a whole thing where he took down a crime family, and that's in the restaurant, and it's in the trailer, but it got cut out of the movie because they just wanted you to get to the story. You wanted to get them overseas.
Yeah, I feel like that was a very smart choice.
Which I agree too, but it could have been cut out of that, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. It feels like they were like trying to allude to something. It's weird.
I think the only thing I think they're trying to do is that, and it's hard, which this is going to lead into my next topic of conversation, which is why I brought this up, was they're trying to make you not hate Flash 100%. Because, like in the comic books, Flash actually became a very conflicted and very complicated three-dimensional character.
And Venom.
I mean, well, yes, that's right. Which, actually, I love that run, by the way. It's actually a very good run. But granted, that's years later. Well, yeah, he's like after he's out of the war, he's in all that stuff. But Flash has a very complicated relationship with Spider-Man and thus Peter Parker. And Peter was always the one that I always remember that being touching, is that he's like, "You're not really a bad guy. It's just you were kind of a prick to me in high school and kind of college." And he's like, "I'm sorry about that, puny Parker."
Yeah.
Sorry, Parker. Like, it's always a thing. And I really like that. And I can see that that's where they're trying to go with it.
Oh, yeah. No, I can see that too.
And I love it. But this is my conundrum. How would you feel? I feel they need to do a Disney Plus series on Spider-Man. I've always said that Spider-Man should not be contained to a movie. It's hard. Because the thing that makes Spider-Man difficult and interesting is all his complicated relationships with everybody.
Sure.
And like maybe do the theatrical movie as like the season finale, if you will. And then that way you can still make all your money or whatever, and Sony will be super happy. But like I just feel like what they want to do with that.
I feel like it's too late with the way this ends.
Well,
if this didn't,
if it didn't have the big thing,
if this didn't end with him being unmasked by Mysterio,
and a great use of cutaway from the fuck word.
Oh yeah,
by the way, which and I just I have memories of panels of him going like this.
Yeah.
But to actually see it in the movie and it just evoked a comic book so much. Well, the whole movie did.
Yeah, which is of course a great first callback to Aunt May with at the end of the first one.
Yeah,
and then also a great parallel in the fact the entire time he's the new Iron Man. He's the new Iron Man, even to the point that he's in the black T-shirt putting together his own armor.
Yeah,
and they're obviously laying in all this groundwork, but then the fact of Tony unmasking himself, that would totally be something that happens to Peter.
Yeah, well, kind of like in Civil War, the original comic book Civil War, Tony kind of unintentionally, like, he kind of was a mob boss. He sweet-talked him, which is like, "I'll provide you all the protection that you need." Yep. And of course, the protection wasn't enough, because Aunt May got hit by, was it the Punisher's bullet?
No, it was someone else.
It was someone else, but it's through Kingpin. I know that. Right. But I will say that was a great issue of him being amassed and him dealing with like his whole life falling apart very quickly, and Tony just like, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." And then Aunt May gets shot.
Yeah, never trust Tony when it comes to personal things.
Very swamp womp.
I was happy the Iron Spider costume was gone rather quickly.
Kind of like it's still there, possibly, but
it's gone.
But it's gone.
We're back to a real Spider-Man suit from what he designs.
Not a fan of the Iron Spider suit in the comic run, were you?
Everything's fine for its limited amount of time.
Yeah,
But
I did not like it in the video game either because I got super excited for like a second because they didn't have that I think in the last one, and then when they threw it in there, I was like, oh, this is lame. It doesn't do anything neat.
First, I heard someone complain about Spider-Man shouldn't fly. It's like, he's not flying. He's gliding on his webs, which were in the original Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, which that was always a source of contention from any artist who drew him.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have the webs there? Does he not have the webs there? And if so, what do they do anything, or is it for show? And it's like
because some artists just didn't want to draw it.
Well, it's an afterthought.
Yeah.
That's not what you're focused on. And let's be fair, Spider-Man is the hardest character to draw only because of the webs on his costume. You gotta
put a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, it's a logistical nightmare. I mean, for any person like me, for example, drawing anything with hands and feet is just very difficult. But then you start adding all the level
rings.
of detail in the rings and I know how to do it. It's not good though, and it's really it's time consuming.
Oh,
So and then when you think about, again, mad props to the guys at Marvel who draw these books. Back in the day, especially when it was a lot worse conditions, where Jack Kirby and all those guys would bust out an issue in maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, but they didn't put the amount of detail in that say
True.
McFarlane or Larson did when they were handling it.
That is true.
Even Bagley didn't. His stuff was just so clean.
It is. It was. It felt new age, but it wasn't.
Right.
It had a sense of that old style.
He was basically a very clean modern version of the Silver Age.
Yes. Which, now granted, I like that, but this is a weird thing. I read, I think, a few issues of his. Was it Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman? Mm-hmm. And it's not bad. It's just, I feel like he just fits with Spider-Man so well.
There's certain artists that, when you see him on something else, just kind of it doesn't.
I know.
And you don't know if it's maybe just the fact that they found the perfect character for them. Mm-hmm. So,
it's interesting, yeah. I
mean, it's seeing, especially when I was growing up, Jim Ballant, who did all the Catwoman stuff.
Yeah, okay.
But then you see him on anything else, and it's
not as yeah. Well, there are some artists I can't think of his name right now. I feel really bad. Humberto Ramos.
Yeah,
he did a few. I actually became aware of him when he was doing Spider-Man with Dan Slott.
Okay,
and then it became then I think Mr. Ramos got very busy, so they started cycling in other artists, and
sure.
I did not. I got so used to that style that it was very shocking to me, and I had a hard time. I think Giuseppe.
Okay, yeah.
I would say it was probably the last 3 issues of Superior Spider-Man run where I was I'm finally okay with his art style. I don't love it. It still bugs me.
It's like seeing someone like Mad or J. Scott Campbell or something, where it's they're so stylized and it's so good on certain books, but
you move to something else.
You move to something else that doesn't fit their style, and it's just it's just like having ingredients that don't work together.
So that's funny. So I remember when I was younger, I remember the first issue of Spider-Man I saw was the one where Venom is holding the skull of Peter Parker, and it's a McFarlane one. And it's a beautiful cover because it's the half human skull, half whatever. And I think he's doing some shakes to be or not to be.
Yeah, and that was before McFarlane got super detailed.
Well,
overly detailed at times.
But
yeah.
I remember reading that, and I didn't know who anybody was. I didn't really understand what was going on. And this was 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And so I didn't do anything for me at the time. I just remember reading that. I was I didn't love the art style. I did love the art style, but years later I went back and looked at some of those issues, and it just doesn't do anything for me. But if I read Spawn, I go, this guy is granted, it's his creation, but he looks really good in Spawn. But when he draws other things, it doesn't pop for me. It's the same thing, which is interesting. But Larson, though, I'm very glad that he is very happy as a cell phone creator. Mm-hmm. He's one of the guys with McFarlane that did Image. But man, one of my favorite runs of just artist and writing is his run on Spider-Man.
That's so good.
It's so good. And the Revenge of the Sinister Six.
And he was the first one to start taking Venom into weird proportions and playing with Venom. Which
is good, but it's also very... It's one of the things that can be kind of bad, too.
Yeah, it becomes a crutch sometimes for a lesser artist.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in Larson's run is Revenge of the Sinister Six is the whole subplot with Mysterio and... See how I'm bringing this back?
Yeah.
Mysterio and Electro and Sandman, which is... I really do love what they did with Sandman, which is they made Sandman a sympathetic character at
Yeah.
that point, where
yeah.
he just wanted that little girl. It's like it's not really his daughter, but like he was raising her, or something like that. And he's just like, I'm not going to join your stupid club. I'm trying to do right by this little girl. And even Mysterio and Electro were just like, I'm kind of with if he doesn't want to do it, we don't want to do it. And then Doc Ock is like, I'm Doc Ock, fuck you guys. And then he turns them into glass, and they're like, I'll do the same to you. Oh, well, he can survive that, we can't.
Yep.
But it also had the great payoff ending ever, which is he gets shattered, but sand is glass.
Yep.
And he becomes a walking... such a great ending. Anyway,
I love. So the funny thing with Mysterio in the comics was he was a joke for a while.
Yes, he was. Which is sad.
He was really kind of the guy with the globe head.
What was his nickname? Fishbowl.
Yeah,
Bubbles?
which I will say, I love the way they handled it for Jake Gyllenhaal, who crushed it in this movie.
Oh my god! We have not talked about him at all.
With his bowl.
Oh yeah, the CGI.
When he was basically wearing his outfit was actually what performers wear.
I know, it has to be such a surreal thing because Tom Holland might actually be wearing one of those.
Yeah,
and then Jake Gyllenhaal's wearing them, but they do fuck nothing on his.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal might. It's possible that they were wearing the exact same suit.
It's such a surreal thing, but it's so great,
which is so awesome. But. And then when Kevin Smith got to Daredevil, and he was like, he ended up making Mysterio basically dying and wanted to go out with a bang. And take out Daredevil and killed Karen Page.
Guardian Devil.
And just how amazing that was. And he made Mysterio so cool that basically everyone wanted to use him again, so they just said he faked his death. And completely got rid of Kevin Smith's story.
Which is sad.
Because he ended up making the villain so cool people didn't want him to die.
Which is a credit to Kevin, but also to the character. Like, you could have a character that could be... oh, man. I hate when they do that in this comic book, but Mysterio, I think, was always, and especially visually, an interesting villain for a film.
Yeah. And especially when you've already established Doctor Strange. Or Mr. Strange, as May thinks. But Jake kills it on so many different levels, especially playing essentially the hero early on when he wasn't. And like his comment that watching it the second time feels, the first time it felt comforting, the second time it felt menacing. When Peter's talking alternate dimensions with him, and he apologizes, and he goes, "Never apologize for being the smartest person in the room."
Oh yeah, and it did have a heavier context.
It's comforting the first time. It's like, oh, he's building up this kid, and the second time you realize he's talking about himself.
Oh yeah,
he's not talking about Peter. He's talking about himself with that comment.
It's a loaded comment,
and it's menacing, and it's like the fact that he was able to play it so that it read both ways depending on what you know.
Yeah,
is so fucking awesome.
He was so good. Can we also give a shout out to Ralphie, little Ralphie, coming back now? So this kind of has always irked me. But for those who aren't initiated with some film trivia, Peter Billingsley played Ralphie, little Ralphie, in Christmas Story. Peter Billingsley then became a producer, and one of the big movies he did that he got a lot of attention for was doing the second big film from Jon Favreau as a writer-director with his co-writer Vince Vaughn was Made.
Yes.
He produced that. From there, John and Peter became really good friends and became producing partners. They even produced Iron Man together. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, they no longer do anything together anymore.
It happens.
It happens, but I just wonder, because Jon Favreau usually, he doesn't do anything with Vince Vaughn anymore, but Vince Vaughn does stuff with him still.
Yeah.
Peter, though, it's a complete break. The only reason why they brought him back, because it was interesting enough to bring him back, I think.
Yeah.
Which, granted, it was amazing that they did that.
Yes.
Because Peter Billingsley played a character in the first Iron Man movie who was one of Stark Industries' scientists, but he worked more for Obadiah Shane.
Yeah. There's a part in Venice which has to be something.
Okay.
I can't figure it out. I've seen it twice, and it's glaringly obvious to me both times.
Okay.
That it's not just... it doesn't just feel like an extra making... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sometimes we're an extra pulse focus.
Yeah.
But it's when Peter and MJ, who, of course, again, is amazing in this movie. she's crushing it in everything right now.
She is. I've only seen like an episode of Euphoria. I'm not saying that right.
I haven't, but I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really good in it.
But as they're walking up the steps in Venice, and she's teaching him
Bo?
Yeah, Bo.
He's such a good.
There's a guy, a white guy behind him in like a all black jacket,
and he's
everything,
watching them.
who's clearly watching them, but yet he's not in any of the Shield. You don't see him with any of the Shield guys. Now, Kevin Feige said that there are hints to what's coming next, and they're in Venice.
I wonder if that's one of them.
That's the one,
because I've noticed that both times, and
he's clearly watching him.
Oh yeah. Now, is he part of Shield? Is he not part of Shield? Is he one of the Skrulls? I mean, that's
right.
And if so, why?
Because you never see him again, and like it's like one of those things. Like to me, like you would have it be Dimitri. But yeah, like there was like that guy in Venice,
yes.
Which to me I was like, wait, like and that's what I'm like. Did something get cut with him, and they just decided to leave it in to feel like a Shield agent, or is that something that? Can
I also say, did this bother you too? There was a weird moment in Venice where Peter buys the necklace, where the music, it's just a weird editing thing, where I think like the music cue they had like, I felt there was some other music or some other background noise, or whatever. I feel it was like the score. Or it was an Italian song or something. They were playing.
Yeah, I remember hearing an Italian song.
And then when he goes in, they change the angle to the thing, and then it becomes a touching, moving score. And it's very jarring, and both times it just irked me. Second time, not as much, but...
I don't know, it wasn't something I totally... One thing I did catch, though, with the score was how every time... How they use the, like maybe 4 or 5 notes of the Avengers theme a couple times.
Yes, yeah.
Like when he handed Mysterio the glasses, like the underscore of the Avengers theme.
Yeah.
And like the first time we saw Nick Fury. But they used that kind of a couple times. I thought to a really nice, where it wasn't distracting, but you noticed the thematic. It felt fully formed like one of the best comic books of a movie, because like it brought all those things back, and like I could just see it in the back of my head, barf, and have an asterisk, like Civil War, Captain America, Civil War, see all, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
like all those like kind of moments where they casually drop these things in, that it felt like Stan would just jump out and be like, check out Captain America, Civil War, true believer.
So I think this is what this was from. Someone on Twitter, and Jessica pinged this to me a day or so ago after she saw the movie, because Jessica really, I think, enjoyed it. I don't think I'm misspeaking for her here. But one of the things was, and I think
Casey can't shut up about it.
I know, he's just nonstop over here. He said that apparently there was an image from, I think, the first issue with the Elementals, where Peter did the same thing he did in the movie, which is he fired at the water thing, and it went right through him. But here's a sub-panel, which you can't do in the movie. Just because I had spider sense didn't mean I had common sense.
Well, I guess also, too, like, I think they had something where there's like license plates around each one of the Elementals that are like the issue of Spider-Man that was in.
Yeah, I felt like...
I can't remember if it was the issue that Elemental was in, or the issue that like Sandman, and the issue that Molten Man, and the issue that Hydra Man.
Didn't Ned eventually become the Molten Man? Ned Leeds?
No, he became Hobgoblin.
Oh, Hobgoblin.
Although that got retconned in the fact that it was someone else and he was framed.
That's true. Was that was during the whole Goblin story, right? Right before J. Michael Straczynski or whatever.
No, he didn't do it. Someone else came in and did.
Was it Slott?
No. So they brought back the original team to basically finish telling the story that it was supposed to be at the time before they got fired.
So now, how do they retcon that he did take the mantle at some point because of that, or did they? No, they said that basically he was killed as a patsy. Fair enough. Okay.
Ned Leeds.
Ned Leeds. I was thinking, but who? Well, I know he's based after more of Gonk, and Ned in the new movies is more based after Gonk from Ultimate Spider-Man, or Miles Morales' Ultimate Spider-Man, which I am very fine with. I think he's a great addition to that. Yeah, and it's nice that Peter has someone to be a foil off of, because before Peter didn't really have anybody. It was Aunt May. And no offense to Aunt May lovers, I'm a fan of Aunt May, but like you're not going to want to come home and talk to you about what's going on, which is easy stuff for plot with Aunt May. Granted, they still did a good job with it in the Raimi version, but it becomes harder. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so overall, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was really good. I was an A- the first time I saw it.
Sure.
And the second time, it bumped it up to just a solid A.
Yeah.
For me, it was just very entertaining. Now again, I don't know if it's better than Homecoming. It's a different vibe.
Yeah, I put it just a shade below Homecoming, but I think part of that is just because I feel like Homecoming kind of, I don't know, this was deceptively heavy because it felt so light.
It was, yeah.
But it tied into so much stuff like Marvel, and the first one just kind of felt more like Peter's journey.
Yeah.
And this one, it felt very much like the fact that how Spider-Man always feels like everything is his fault. The weight of the world is such a huge theme in Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
The responsibility aspect.
I mean, that's kind of a thing in this one. It is. They play on one little aspect of it, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the...
So, I don't know. I feel... Yeah, it was like just a shade, and that's like, I think I gave, Homecoming an A. That's kind of why I put this one around like an A-.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean... I'm going to watch them both over and over. It's kind of one of those things of we've had 3 amazing, spectacular web of I don't know, anything you want to put, but Spider-Man movies in a row.
Now, is there a part of you that's sad that they did the Amazing Spider-Man movies before they rebooted it again with Marvel, where you're just like, I really love you to use Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, but to me though, I think Amazing is the best one you could use. You know what I mean? So Amazing is where I would end up off of. So I would do the Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, and then the third one would be the Amazing Spider-Man. But I digress. Little nitpicky thing.
Spectacular was the one that I had the longest running subscription to. So.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was like Sal Buscema's art.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
John Buscema's brother.
Yeah, okay. Sorry.
It was just very, very classic, and
so it's weird. I have Bagley, and then I have Larson, and then I have like a vision of McFarlane every once in a while, but then it goes to Romita Sr. and occasionally Romita Jr.
Yeah, if you want to check out the Sin Eater, which would have been like the Death of Jean DeWolf, was probably one of the classic ones that he did.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, so that was our conversation on Spider-Man Far From Home. Please be sure to support Erik for this episode. You can do that by checking out the show notes, or you can check out eriksternberger.com. Yep. And do you want to do the pet thing?
Oh, yeah, Rescued Ohio. I'll try and give you a link, too. I think, and they just made actually a store now, so you can actually buy their T-shirts.
Oh, cool. So it's an extra way to support
and stuff, another way to support them. They're actually the good soft. I'm a T-shirt snob, and they're actually like the good quality T-shirts.
They're nice and soft.
Yeah.
Oh, those are great. All right.
I hate when my nipples bleed.
It's always a problem.
Yeah.
It's always a problem.
There's your show stinger.
Well, Erik, as always, man, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Jeez! You're a creep! Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, cheapers! Go have some coffee with cream or something! Because I'll tell you something! This is a happy place!